I wish this was like real life. This would be so cool.
I know. Freaking shoots him. Boom.
Oh my god. What?
Crazy.
Like I've lost all my faith, lying naked on the floor. This is how I feel. You know, it's just so honest. It's just so real. You know, but then also doing random shit. Like last night, I ate a whole pint of Ben and Jerry's, right? Which is like all.
Good morning. My name is Salah. Welcome to Jared to Jared. On this week's episode, the Jareds will discuss loss, the J2J Cycle of Grief, the Twilight Zone, liberation, retiring on a Norwegian cruise line, and much, much more. Let's set sail.
Definitely. And see, that's my first question. So 3 things came to mind. The first one is just why? Why is loss so hard? Because it's true. Why? Just why? What is that? Why? Like, why, as human beings, why is it not just like, yeah, I lost such and such a thing and okay, you know, yeah, it sucks, but we're not even that sucks. It's just like, yeah, it's part of life. And I lost whatever it is. And then you're just like, okay, next, you know, like what is that? What's that? What's that attachment? You know?
Right.
So first question's why. The next thing, the book of Job, the story of Job immediately came to mind because that is the story of a man who loses everything. And then everything is returned to him tenfold. Right. So what's going on with that story? Because there's something there that's fascinating. And then the third thing is my own experience with this grieving process that actually has been really fascinating. And for the first time, it's really only been like 2 weeks. I think I was grieving before that, but 2 weeks since it like really, you know, broke off. And it hasn't been until now that I've started to see grief as a teacher. Because before the past couple of days, it was just like horrid. The amount of pain and angst. Right. You know, whereas now I'm starting to see it as like you're describing the teacher. Right. There's some sort of refining process happening within my own being. Yes. Yeah. Where should we start?
That's why it's kind of like a travesty for one not to grieve when grief is necessary.
Exactly.
And then it comes out in different ways in your personality. Yeah. But like Dr. Gagnon, my psych teacher, would always say, you can't just keep packing things in the closet.
Oof, without
grieving,
explode.
And then it blows up, and then boom, you have a nervous breakdown. You're like, you know, need to be like hospitalized for a weekend, you know, and then take a month off on the Norwegian cruise line, you know.
Yeah.
So that being said, grieving is an essentiality to the human experience.
Right.
And it's not something that should be ignored or, you know,
you got to go through
not engaged with. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. You got to go through the process or else there's going to be nothing learned at all.
Right.
And then you're just bitter. You're just left with pure bitterness that this thing was taken away from you.
Right.
You know, it's just absolute bitterness.
So this is making me think of like modern day relationships where people just jump from relationship to relationship relationship. You know, they never grieve. They never have that, but they do. It comes out in this weird, like,
of course,
you know, very unhealthy way, which then ruins their new relationship and then the next one and the next one, the next one.
Dude, totally.
You know?
I was with someone and years ago I was with someone and this was like further along in our relationship until, it had to have been at least a year in. And then she reflected to me, she goes, I think I'm still grieving the previous relationship before me.
Right,
you know?
Right.
And I was like, what do you mean? So I was like, we've been together for like a year, dude. Yeah. Like, what do you mean? You know, and it hurt my feelings. It definitely hurt my feelings and was like, what the hell, you know? And to her credit, she was just being like honest. And if anything, maybe just gotten to a point of comfort within herself. And who knows, perhaps with me, that she was able to allow herself to feel the grief that she had just ignored before, stuffed in the closet.
Right.
You know, so it does come back at some point. And she was, expressing that. And I was just like, man, that's a bummer,
Right.
But for her, I don't think she meant it as a devaluation of our connection at the time. I think it was just a reality thing that she was just like, wow, I didn't fully process that one.
There is no set rules to grief either.
No.
And how to grieve. No. And we all want to implicate our own process onto others. Just like, why aren't you crying, or why aren't you freaking out? Yeah. Or, you should be feeling better by now, Yeah.
Right.
It's like, wait a minute,
Or at least doing the at least thing. Oh, well, at least you're not,
right,
at least you're not, I don't know, living in whatever super poverty stricken country or something. It's like people do it oh, you got to count your blessings. It's like, no, you need to honor what you're actually feeling.
Lesser of the grief, right?
Right.
Or just like, well, you didn't know him that well. Like, why are you?
Just like, cool, thanks. It worked. I'm over it.
Yeah, just like, oh, okay, great. Then, everything's fine. Then you're right. Yeah. It's like, no, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
We all have our own special connections with who we have. Or like relationship, just like, well, you were only with them for, so long of a time. Like, I've had more significant relationships that last 6 months than lasted 2 years, 10 years. You know what I mean? Like, it depends.
Yeah, there's a certain potency and lessons that come through and all these sorts of things. Yeah.
And I have this weird tendency to make it personal for me too, is to withdraw, especially in relationships. I think this is something that like was learned or implicated when I was young, but will withdraw from a relationship. It's over, broken up, I'm completely fine. God, I feel great, liberated, freaking for months, like 2 months, I'll be fine. Just like completely fine.
Right.
Thinking in my head, I'm completely fine. Yeah, maybe a little neurotic, whatever, going to the gym too much, this and that,
Yeah.
But then one day something will trigger it, and then I'll be devastated. Just like, oh man, I fucked up.
Dude, yeah.
But then for people like me, it's too late, because it's like, for most grieving processes, it's freaking grieve immediately, talk it out, freaking, let's cry it out, get into fights, figure this thing out. Whereas like people like my grieving process are, okay, let's space here, like a canyon of space. It's over. Let's not discuss.
Right.
But then when you are ready to face that demon, demon's dead, So it's but it's also works kind of as a protection too. Cause oftentimes you don't want to go back to the grieving process is meant for you to move on. I find instead of revert back to, Yeah,
that's wonderful. And the grief, I was talking with a friend about this recently, that the grief kind of holds you in a way, and that there's actually a grace around the grief, because if say a breakup, you go through a breakup and then immediately go from feeling connected and interwoven and with another person, and then just like with the flip of a switch, now you're just like in emptiness, complete disconnection. It would like, there's no gradual process there. Like your mind couldn't handle that. Your emotions couldn't handle that if it's just like from one state of being to the next without any kind of gradual process. Whereas the grief is that process. The grief is you're fully connected and now you're alone in your apartment, and then you notice how many things of there is related to them, gifts or whatever it is. And then you start to get rid of that stuff a little bit at a time. And then you maybe have some kind of sentimental object and you want to get rid of that one, but then you realize you're not ready yet. So then you hold on to it a little bit longer and maybe drop some other stuff. And it's gradual. Right, like there's no, you have to be done with it in 2 months or something,
And then, I think that there's degrees too, or like stages of grief. Obviously, that's been a
there's
thing,
the denial, anger,
right. But I'm thinking more of like links of time.
Yeah.
Like there's the grief of the first year.
Yeah.
The grief the second year. But there is versions of grief. Like there's some relationships I haven't been in over 10 years, 15 years, that I still have moments of like,
oh, sure. Yeah.
You know, like little bit of grief. Just like, man, that's like sad. Not
and
with
nostalgia,
that person. They're really cool, awesome.
Yeah. Nostalgia is a form of grief.
And it's never like super crazy, but you know.
Yeah.
I think there's, and that's the thing where it's like you become like pieces of you throughout your entire life.
Yeah, it's your story.
You know? Yeah.
And I've been learning a lot through grief. The first thing that I learned was I really the whole like, you know, jump from one relationship and then a week passes and you're in a new one, which like I've always been amazed when people do that. I'm just like, you know, and I've definitely judged people for doing that. Sure. I'll be straight up, you know,
which is a grieving process for them. They're grieving, so they need to like jump into another relationship to like feel validation again and to like fill the sadness hole.
Yeah. And that's the thing I recognize. So it's been really 2 weeks without contact, and I have felt and continue to feel this temptation to immediately jump in to trying to find someone else, jumping on the apps immediately, whatever. And I haven't, because I have enough self-awareness to realize that like that's not going to solve the issue, and that what I'm actually trying to do is run away from these difficult feelings,
right.
Run away from the withdrawal process of exiting that sense of companionship. So it's given me a little bit more. I know I'd like to say I'm not as like judgmental of that kind of behavior, because I definitely see the capacity for it within myself. Right. Like I see how that could happen. So that's been, it's been interesting. And then trying to hold space for that grief. Right. You know, but then also doing random shit. Like last night I ate a whole pint of Ben and Jerry's, right? Which is like, which is, you know, it's like nice. Yeah, you'd see that in like a movie or something, you know, it's like this weird, like archetypal thing that you're going through grief, and then you just like shove a bunch of fucking ice cream into your face while like watching YouTube. And I did that last night. I was like food shopping. I was like, man, I just really want some like Ben and Jerry's or something. And I got some, and I was like, I'm just going to have some of it. It's a big pint, you know? And the next thing I know, I'm just fucking like zoning out, watching whatever dumb shit on YouTube, just like shoveling ice cream into my mouth. And then it clicked, and I was just like, oh God, fuck yeah, this is part of the grieving thing. I don't usually like buy a bunch of sweets and hang out in my room, you know? It's I was like, oh, I'm grieving.
Yeah. Signs of depression, they come out, or like grief or whatever it is. Yeah. And also there is no set time, just like, well, you have to be single then for like 1 year and 9 months and 7 days before you can date another person.
And giving that some space too.
It's like, hey, heck with it. If you're feeling good, you know, you're going through some grief, be honest with the person, but hey, there's a lot of people in similar situations or are down to just hang. And that's one way to work with grief. That's one teaching moment of grief. Definitely. Is seeking the village, is being able to like, you know, get out there, go on a date, have a conversation with some, you know, with a potential like a cool girl, whatever, and go with some friendships, and, you know, be honest, be like, hey, just got out of a relationship, whatever, but, you know, going through that, but hey, you're cool, you know, let's hang.
Definitely. Yeah. And I've been spending more time just like reaching out to people, trying to make more connections here, hanging out with friends, like whatever, you know, just making sure that I'm like, okay, I'm getting my social time, and learning how to be alone again is weird, because I always thought of myself as someone who's like pretty good at being alone. And it's been tough to be alone, and I find myself continually avoiding it. And a few times I felt this like tension in my body where I'm like, shit, I'm gonna be alone tonight. And then a few times I've just allowed myself to feel it. And that's my goal, is to feel it, engage the process, and then be done with it, because I don't want to have to do this longer than I need to, you know? So it's like a few times I was home and just like really resisting the fact that I was alone. And I could feel this like tension in my body, and I go, shit, fine. And then I'll sit there, get my meditation bench out, and just like sit and allow myself to feel the pain of being alone. And I'll just start crying. And it's like, oh man, it's fucking devastating. But then I actually feel better afterwards. So then it's like, okay, all right.
Right. And it's not even necessarily the alone time. Because it's funny, like some people I hear talk about being alone. And I'm a perpetually single person as like some horrifying event. And I look forward to it. I fucking love being alone. Right. Yeah, exactly. It's like, you know, for me, there is no pain. There's more pain being in a relationship. They even say it's sacrifice than there is being single. Right. And just like being able to watch your favorite show or the video game you want to play and go to sleep when you want to go to sleep. Yeah. Starfish, no one in your bed, just like arms and legs out, freaking Patrick Star. Right. You know, wake up, freaking beautiful day, Folgers. Yeah. There's a freedom and beauty to it. Yeah. But of course, like isolation and loneliness can be like the number one cause of death and stress.
Pandemic. Yeah.
Is like, being alone constantly, this and that. But that doesn't mean that you necessarily have to seek out like a long-term romantic relationship or whatever. Yeah. Or your life is somehow meaningless because you're not like making eggs for some, you know, chick right now and going to Costco after. Right. That's not like the only form of living.
No, of course not.
Like get some friends.
Yeah. And the
reach out to your friends, like go out, get a dog. Me and Haggard hang out all the time, go for walks, like find some cool podcasts, read a freaking book, like get a hobby, learn to love yourself. And then when you get into a relationship, you're showing this other person this beautiful like existence of yours. Yeah. You know, without a partner, whatever, you know, instead of like, there is unhealthy grieving to me. And that's,
well, you can get stuck on it.
Like jumping from a relationship to relationship, but not just like, let's go out and have tea. Like, freaking fucking now you're in love with the new person. Yeah. Like I'm saying, I love you. And like, what's happening is transference of the previous grief of the relationship onto this new person who doesn't deserve that. Right. Who's just like, dude, we've known each other for like 2 weeks. What are you like screaming at me about going to Creed for? That happened to me this year. Creed, when I went to Creed, I got like had been seeing this girl for a couple of weeks and then like sent her messages like, hey, you should come to Creed, you know, hang out. Like, I'll meet you at the gate, get you a ticket. She lived in Albuquerque. Yeah. And she's like, first of all, you need to understand that I'll never be second tier or second thought. That's and like crazy, just went on, and I was like,
like 2 weeks.
Never talked to her again. Of course, like, and of course, she had a just relationship before.
Right. What are you carrying in? Yeah. And look, man, we had a conversation once about the Matrix, right? And the new simulations of the Matrix, right? In the universe of that movie series, it's like, you know, each time that was it the robots or whatever who made the Matrix, every time they like make a new version or a better version, they tweak it out, whatever. Right. And then we had this whole conversation about not wanting to carry old stuff into the new simulation. Right. You know? Right. So I don't know if that's even accurate to the Matrix anymore, but that point that like, I don't want to carry stuff from chapter 1 into chapter 32.
And that's like the Merovingian. He was
that's right.
You know, something that shouldn't have been there from the original Matrix.
Exactly.
He just kept
you don't want to carry old stuff that's hindering you into the new simulation, into the new chapter.
Right.
And so that's why I want to go through this grief process and engage in it and gain some wisdom and say, okay, what can I actually get from this, you know?
And it wouldn't be healthy to just be alone all the time.
No, of course not.
No friends, no nothing. You know, just talk about blow your brains out, you know. But that's not what we're condoning here.
Yeah, even Buddhist monks and stuff who like they will spend a lot of time alone meditating, but then like there's like the 3 pillars of Buddhism, and one of them is the community. Right. You know, they're like no one is like, you know, oh, you need to learn how to be completely isolated.
Sure,
that's an Aristotle thing, where he says someone who can live completely on their own is either a god or a beast. It's just not human.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
And like other like unhealthy forms too of grieving would be like stalking a person.
Yeah,
like
crazy shit. Like
getting
that.
suicidal. Yeah. But there are healthy ways. I think that'd be a good like thing to touch stone on. It's like healthy grieving.
Yeah, and there's no bad feelings in the sense. I had a it was really interesting. I did this like kind of spontaneous grief ritual the other day.
Nice.
It was really cool, where I just was letting go of some stuff, and I was out in nature, and just the whole thing, it was like an art piece. It was really cool, the way that this experience developed. And I'm sitting by this stream just like wailing, dude, and letting myself. I was like embarrassed, but then I looked around. I was like, no one's here. Let yourself fucking freak out. It's okay. Dude, one of the worst pains I have ever felt in my entire life. It was really fucking intense. And then I felt really good after.
Right.
And was like, Jesus Christ, leave that there. I don't want to carry that with me.
Right.
You know, because that was pretty.
The death simulator.
Dude, seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah. But one thing I want to say that I'm learning from it is wild. It's becoming this access point for even older grief. Ooh. Chapter 1 grief, chapter 2 grief, you know? So I've been having this thing in like meditation sessions and stuff like that, where it's been this like fear of separation and grief of separation. So before we broke up, I was like feeling this, just like at this meditation where just like all the unprocessed grief from various separations in my life was like coming up. It was just like, holy shit. And it was like watching a movie. It's just like parents getting divorced, leaving public school to go to Catholic school, which I wasn't happy about, going to one place for college my freshman year, then transferring out, which I wasn't happy about. This girlfriend way early on, whatever. All these moments of unprocessed grief.
Yes.
And behind that was this deep, deep, deep fear of separation.
Right.
So I realized that part of this, like, even though this relationship was becoming unhealthy for me, I was like, I'm going to keep holding on because I'm so scared of another separation. Right. So then kind of getting to see that movie of all the grief and be like, well, I survived. I'm okay, you know, and even getting to process some of it, I feel like gave me the confidence to be like, okay, I can do another separation, and it actually will be for the better, even though it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
You know, and created that space.
I like that.
Yeah. So this separation has become an access point through which to get in contact with earlier ones, like my parents' divorce, for example. I didn't realize, you know, I mean, I was like 8 years old or something. So I was like, I'm sure I didn't like fully process and grieve and engage in that, you know, because I was 8. But now I'm getting to actually use this moment of breakup as an opportunity to kind of go deep into that earlier experience of breakage and separation.
Right.
And recover some of that story.
Nice.
Nice.
I like that.
Yeah, which feels pretty healing.
Teaching moment of the grief.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. Going back to why grieve?
Yeah.
Why even have it in the first place? I was kind of thinking like, so anthropologically speaking, we had to grieve certain things for the enabling of the species to grow. So if you don't grieve the loss of a child or the loss of your wife or your husband, well, then we would incessantly probably have been like leaving, abandoning, perhaps even hyena style, killing our own people.
Oh, interesting.
And then if you never grieve the loss of a partner, well, then the procreation story is completely different.
Mm-hmm.
Then it would all be based just on like pillaging, essentially.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something there,
no,
right?
saying,
like you have to grieve in order for the species to continue.
Yeah, that has like an evolutionary function.
Protect, because you don't want to lose a child, so you build fences. So you go you hunt, and then more children come, and more children, It's the safety of the village, which can only really happen through grief. If we have no grieving process, well, then why the fuck would we care one way or another? Just like, oh, well, lost another kid today. Well, fuck it.
And that's not effective biologically, right? If we're just being like strictly biological about it, it's like, what's the species' purpose? Is to perpetuate itself.
Sure.
And grief kind of informs that process.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then I want to hit you with sort of like a meta philosophical concept on grief.
Yeah.
So we grieve the loss of, death, loss of relationships, all this stuff, changes in life, But then there's a self-reflective grief of the loss of your own life. That's like the overarching grief that we deal with for our whole existence, is the death moment. And then sort of like, how are we living to deal with that grief? That like continued lifelong grief of losing a waking experience. Or is that all based in fear? Or is fear and grief sort of, cousins together? They work in harmony together in a way as well.
So good. Yeah. Oh yeah, fear and grief definitely work in harmony. There's something there. And grieving, I think every time we lose something, maybe it feels like, and perhaps is, losing a part of ourselves, right? Because you're not just losing a person, for example, you're losing the part of you that you feel that person was drawing out.
Right.
Or as you get older, you're not just grieving. Well, yeah, it's the loss of your youth. It's the loss of, and everything that entailed.
Right.
I asked my mom once how aging has been for her, and she goes, absolutely terrible.
Right.
And I mean, then there's been, from my perspective, a lot of great things too. Sure. In this example, my mom's aging. She's become this just really graceful, beautiful individual, much more present and compassionate and all of that, and has much more wisdom now as she's approaching 70 than she did earlier in her life. But that comes at a cost, it's like wisdom costs something. So it's like you do get wisdom, which is pretty invaluable, but you are going to let go of all these gems and jewels of youth.
Right.
So you are grieving the loss of different parts of yourself along the way.
Right.
And you gain things too, though.
You do.
You gain a lot, through loss.
Through loss, you grow.
Yeah. You gain a lot. So grief is really just a perspective too. Because if it's like, I'm losing so much, then you're going to be stuck in grief forever. But if you are able to say, well, I'm gaining, whether in wisdom and grace, or if I'm gaining in my life is making more space for something that's more in deeper alignment to come through. You get fired from, and this happens all the time. You get fired from your job, and then it's terrible. And then 3 months later, you're in your dream job or something like that. That stuff happens all the time. Right.
And death is the ultimate loss. Because not only do you then lose all relationships, you also lose the self, which is a character in your own story. Yeah. It's the protagonist. Yeah. So the protagonist in your life story dies, right? So there's the grief over that too, of the entire self. Yeah. What's interesting is people like my grandma Dora, who welcomed death with open arms. Never cried about it once. Never said, like, I don't want to die. Never uttered the words, and like lived in a home for a few years there towards the end. She was in her 90s, but was like, oh yeah, I'm I'm ready to go to sleep. It's going to be very nice. Just like, boom. And then she passed away and she was fine with a smile on her face, just like completely ready, was like satisfied with her family, life, all this stuff, and like went with death essentially, This makes me think of the Twilight Zone, only in the Twilight Zone. Jared and Jared, two average podcasters, unbeknownst to them. We watched an episode. Me and Dolly been watching it. She loves it.
Hell yeah. The original, like classic.
Yeah. And there's a good episode of a history teacher, popular beyond words. And he like knew the history too well, almost as if he had lived it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So good.
And he's friends with another professor there at the college, who's like on to him.
Okay.
And he invites him over.
I wish this was like real life. This would be so cool.
I know. Invites him over for chess and like, smoking a pipe. And they're like,
so good.
Remove the net. And I believe it was my turn. It's like, yes, it was. Yeah, I'm freaking. And they're like playing chess and he calls him out. And he's like, I looked up that Civil War general you were talking about, or captain. And he's like, and he's like, you made me really interested in it. And I was looking at my this old book of like Civil War photographs. And he's like, look at the picture of this guy sitting on the table. And it's him.
Of course.
But the cool thing about the story is this forever question of immortality, right? And he hated it. He wanted to die. The character was actually 2,000 years old. He said, well, I'm old enough to be friends with this guy. And he points at a statue of Plato. And he's like, Plato, my God, 2,000 years ago. But he was too much of a coward to take his own life. But it is a really cool story, like sees an alchemist 2,000 years ago, and
so
like
awesome.
that puts him in a coma for like 2 weeks.
Oh man, this episode sounds amazing.
Like, the alchemist was gone and he never died again, and it's cool because it ends with one of his ex-wives who's like in her 80s finds him. And she's like, Tommy, I know it's you, Tommy. You're not going to do this anymore. Freaking shoots him. Boom.
Oh my God. What?
Crazy. And then he like, David Cronenberg like starts aging while he's dying. He's like, no, get away from me. Don't call the cops.
Oh my God.
It's finally happening. And he like turns into dust, like literal dust. It's freaking crazy episode.
That sounds so cool.
But that goes into sort of like the grieving thing where we're talking about is he talks about you meet all these people that you engage with, relationships, you learn from them, this and that, and then they all die and you don't die. And it just continues on and continues on and continues on. So you're having to relive the worst grief of all time, over and over and over again. It's an eternity of hell, essentially, without being able to die.
Wow, great. Yeah. Yeah. And you said something about the grief of losing yourself ultimately to death, right? My question to that is, who is the self that is doing the losing and who is the self that's being lost? Does that, do you get the question? Like does that indicate there's a soul or something that's losing the body? Because if we just die and then there's nothingness, well, who's lost?
Right.
You know what I mean?
The outer body. Yeah.
Like who's losing a body?
Right. Well, I was kind of seeing it too as like the human family. Also, it loses like a character within the story line as well. And there's sort of like a generational grief. Perhaps, or like, grief that spans centuries, That's also the cool thing about Dracula, Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula, where his grief is what keeps him alive and makes a pact with the devil.
Incredible.
So he can, seek revenge on God for taking away that. He was so fucking sad.
Yeah.
He willed himself to, boom, be able to live forever, which then became his detriment. So grief essentially in the, Christian canon is a gift from God, actually, because it not only does it allow you to teach these teaching moments, right? It also allows you this space to sort of experience someone in a way that you would never before, through the grieving process, being able to God, they really become part of your soul. It's like this moment when you lose somebody close to you, where it's like a freaking Mighty Morphin Power Rangers of pain and growth and and it's crazy because it's absolute. Also, that's why you grieve. Right. If it's oh no, you broke up, but you'll be back together in 2 months, so you wouldn't be sad. You'd be like, oh word, well, I guess I'm gonna read some books, kind of sucks, but it's the finality that brings on grief too, which makes human beings, our existence, beautiful. Is our mortal selves, our the finality of our lives, our existences within this world. And every time we lose something or lose someone to death, we're experiencing the human condition, which is loss, ultimately.
Yeah. There's God, because the part of me that's caught in grief right now, the feeling of loss, wants to be well, what the fuck? Is it all just loss, Which in a way it is. I mean, life really is just a game of loss. It's one loss after the next, with a lot of joy too. That's why I'm specifying from the, perspective I'm in currently. It's one of seeing things through the lens of grief and loss, and that's kind of coloring everything, where it's just what the God, everything we do just is lost at some point. And it's just well, why do anything then? Right.
Well, it's because it's a necessity to growth. You can't just constantly gain without losing anything. Right? Then you become the whale. It's too much. Their growth would not have the same effect or the same sort of power and healing effects and power in the village and all this stuff without loss.
And there's so many.
That story you told me about the girl who goes and sees, the Buddhist temple, whatever, who
lost her child.
The monk, lost her child.
I was actually listening to that
and
today.
He goes in, really weird. Talks to everybody in the town. Episode, not everybody lost. Everyone has lost, and that's exactly the power too. Right. That then healed her wound. Was the fact that everyone in the village had experienced this grief,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there's connection there, and that's the richness of group therapy, circles, things like that. And I've been getting a lot of that. That's been really cool. And it has put me in kind of deeper connection with people. I keep coming in contact with people who share their stories or have had very similar stories and similar situations or recent situations as well. And it's wow, and I can feel this bond then, and just this oh, okay, cool. Yeah. It's universal, so that's okay.
And one of the beautiful things it brings about is change.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Is
seasons.
No one would be able to change, what's her name in Chocolat, the main girl, Beyond or whatever. That's why grief is so much a part of every single story that we watch and are entertained with and are moved by. There's grief in every single Shakespeare, every single comedies, even, there's always some sort of sense of loss or gain or whatever. One of the most powerful moments is in Guardians of the Galaxy 2 when the the guy with the helmet, he dies, right? Sacrifices himself for Star-Lord. And throughout the first movie and the beginning of the second movie, this guy's old crew, Sylvester Stallone and whatever, you know, they abandoned him. They're like ashamed of him and like told him he wasn't part of their crew anymore. You know? And like, fuck you, whatever. And after he like went through change, learned, went through some sacrifice and then passed away, they all show up at the end of the movie and like fire off, like do the ritual funeral for him by like firing off.
Right, I think I remember that, yeah.
So beautiful and freaking Raccoon's like, they actually came and freaking, it's not time to make a change. Yeah. Just relax, take it easy. Freaking playing in the background just hits so good, right? Because of grief. That's why, you know, because of the loss of the soul. And they changed. Sylvester Stallone changed. Everyone's hearts were moved because of this event that happened, you know? Yeah. And that's a very powerful, that's a very like beautiful human thing. And then Yondu, that's the guy who died. Yondu ends up, you know, living on with them forever, you know, and then his relationship with Chris Pratt turns into like this mentorship sort of thing into like a father-son at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot of change that comes through and it's like seasons, right? You know, it's like just cycles. We're always just moving through all of it.
Right.
Yeah. I'm curious about the story of Job in the Bible, right? Because there's a story of grief.
Right.
Right. So in that one, you have this guy, Job, super wealthy, and God and Satan come in and, hey, let's take it all away and see what happens to his faith, you know? Right, but I don't care about the faith part of the story. I just care about the grief part and kind of how it progresses and what it says, because he loses everything. And we could even take God and the devil out of the story and say like, hey, it's just a story about like seasons of change, you know, because he loses everything and then has nothing and he's sick and naked in the mud and just like, God, you know. And then when God comes down and it's just like, you don't understand, dude. You don't understand the process. You don't understand because from your perspective, you're locked in time. You have no idea what's going on.
Right.
From the God perspective, this is a much bigger game. It's a much bigger portrait going on here. This is your entire life, 80 years kind of as almost laid out as an oil painting. And for all you know, this part of your life is a really crucial part of the painting, so to speak. And then after that, Job seems to have more grace and is capable of letting go into the process of grief. And then fast forward some time and now he's got like, you know, this is ancient Hebrew times. He's got like 10 wives instead of 2. He's got way more kids than he had before. He has way more sheep, you know. In other words, it's kind of materialist and weird in those terms. But in other words, he got through the grief and then life became way more fruitful for him because of that. So thoughts?
Right.
What is that? Have you experienced that in your life?
Ooh, good one. You know, I don't know, not to that level, of course, but Job is a story of extremes, just like lots of stories. It's like, let's show you an extreme and then you can relate this to your own life in some sort of way. This is making me think of something we've talked about a lot, which is the destruction of sort of the ego deaths in a way of or like you're on this certain path and it's not leading you to where you want to lead and you feel the malaise, you're in a rut.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, fuck it, I need to like lose my job or something. That's why they say sometimes getting fired could be the best thing for you, or lose a relationship could be the best thing for you.
Yeah.
Because then, you know, it helps you to make the right changes that you need, you know, that you needed to make in order to be happy, in order to be fulfilled. So Job could have been in this situation where he was kind of a dick, good guy, I guess, but he made a lot of money, was like, had a good job, had a big family. Maybe his kids were freaking assholes, you know. But
something was out of alignment.
Something was out of alignment for Job. And then he went down into the ruts, and then it was this classic sort of like from rags to riches story.
Yeah.
When he goes back to the rags and then back into, you know, where he really wanted to be, which was, you know, nestled in with this new family, showed his faith to God, all that good stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And that's now harking back to sort of the King Lear thing. It's not until, or it's in these moments where we feel we've lost everything, that we're closest to everything that we've ever wanted. And it's in that moment of in the mud, out there in the storm, blind, freaking God, you know, King Lear, whatever, that Job, where then we're closest to redemption, to closest to everything what we really wanted, which, you know, for King Lear was a relationship with his daughter again, you know, clarity with the people and all this stuff, you know, so. And then, of course, there's the aspect of this is a classic story as well of sort of, you know, what's that? The Pursuit of Happiness, that movie, like Will Smith or whatever. Yeah. You know, this is a big like issue happening in America. People that are not on drugs becoming homeless, you know, because of a loss of a job, high rents, you know, all this stuff. They're living in extended stay hotels, which end up charging them more than rent, you know, at the end of the day. Yeah. And a lot of those stories, that's when it's like, boom, then I was in extended stay hotel and now look at me, I'm a freaking head of a record label or something. You know? Right. So I don't know. I think there's two ways to look at it as, it's fucked up that he lost all his kids and his family and everything. And they play it out to be like, well, that's okay because he just got a new one. Yeah,
that I just write that off as like a bizarre, like super ancient desert people, patriarchal kind of thing where they're just like, yeah, it's just stuff. Who fucking cares?
Mythological story. Just like, some kids died, whatever. You got new ones.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'd like to look at it in the positive light, which I think the story is actually trying to say, which is when we go through these extensive moments of loss and grief, you know, even back to the brewer's coach, when you feel that inside, that's when you know this is a moment where you could do something great. This is when you can change your life. And really grow and be someone better. Yeah. In a situation like, you know, yours or whatever, which I've been in lots of times. You know, these are situations where you can take it and you can really expand and, you know, grow some new petals on the flower bush, you know. Totally. And be able to then the next relationship you have, it be that much more complete and like more something that aligned to your lifestyle, who you want to be with, more chemistry there. Definitely. Not just physically, but emotionally and intellectually speaking, all that stuff. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I just want to differentiate now between the J2J Cycle of Grief and the currently existing cycle of grief that psychologists would talk about, because that's current thing, and they'll talk about denial. It's the 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, something, and acceptance.
Right. Right.
But ours is a bit different than that.
Yeah.
Because we're focusing more on that space of liberation. We get more into liberation.
Yes.
And forgiveness as that step toward liberation.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And the Jesus thing, just to I guess summarize what that was about. So our man Jesus is on the cross and then has that moment where he says he's being tortured by the Roman soldiers. They're dipping sponges in vinegar and pouring it into his wounds. I mean, terrible stuff. You can't even imagine. Right. And then he looks up to the skies and says, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do."
Exactly.
And then he can die and be resurrected.
Yes.
So then liberation doesn't come until he goes, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do." Sure. And that level of forgiveness to say, someone who hurt me, even brutally, right? And then to say, well, they didn't know what they were doing.
Right.
The power in that, yeah.
And realizing too, sometimes the person you isn't a bad person, but it's like this fucking bitch, or you know, whatever. Where really it's like you're both acting in a way you wouldn't before. It's not a good relationship. It's not a good match. They don't. You got to forgive sometimes people what you do in these situations. You know?
Yeah.
And then once you forgive, you can, boom, get liberated, right?
Yeah.
And then thinking about the Jesus cycle to add to that. First, he grieves. He's literally bleeding tears and sweat in the garden, right, of Gethsemane or whatever. Then he's, gets angry, freaking, at the Romans. He's getting beat, whatever. Then forgiveness, then liberation. But what's cool is he sort of jumps around, from anger to sadness. Yeah. Forgiveness, liberation, because even at the end he says, "Father, why have you forsaken me?" Right? He's still kind of experiencing an anger there in the liberation.
Yeah.
So I think it's okay to sort of go through the roller coaster at times, to find the ultimate sense of freedom.
Yeah, full freedom. And that's what you're going for is full freedom. That's the galacticist. Trajectory, because you don't want to be stuck on it. You want to forgive, not even for them, but for you, and even that, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. That's there's something fascinating there, that in that moment, Jesus isn't saying, "I forgive them." Right. He's not saying, "I forgive them." He's saying, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." So there's layers to that, because on one hand, it's giving it to a higher source, a higher power. It's saying, "I don't know what to do with this.
Sure.
This is more than I can handle."
Right.
And this is the human side of Jesus' side. This is more than I can handle. Can you forgive them? So there's even an element of maybe he himself wasn't even ready to forgive, but there's this deep level of self-awareness, because it's, well, I'm not ready to forgive them. It's not, this is fucked up. This is still happening, but I'll give it to that higher power and ask for that level of grace for them, for me, forgive them, for they don't know what they do. Right. Which is interesting too, because you would assume in that cosmology, God, the all-knowing, all-powerful, already knows and already understands that they don't get it. Right. And has already forgiven them, that even the asking of forgiveness is itself superfluous.
Sure.
So there's something interesting going on there.
Though I think that you have to come to a point of forgiveness first in the inner self before you can even take the step to ask an outer self to forgive as well.
Yeah.
So he's actually the first example of love in that situation, and that's ultimately what it comes down to at the end of it all. Is I think love is a cure too of grief, being able to forgive, being able to, move on from someone you lost, whether that be through death or through relationship, whatever, finding liberation actually is found through sort of, Anne Hathaway. Love, it's not something we created. It's, right. It's not tangible. It's just there. It's like a substance, back to Interstellar.
Right. It's something beyond us.
Yeah.
And every time I've forgiven to any extent, and I'm realizing it's a process too. That's not just like, okay, I forgave and now I'm done. At least where I'm at in my process with it. It's this, I forgave that instance.
Well, it takes a while. I forgave that one. It takes a while too. Is you have to grieve.
Yeah.
You have to grieve.
Yeah. You can't rush through the stages.
You have to get angry, and be like, oh, fuck that shit, blah, blah, blah. And then you can get to a point of forgiveness. Yeah. And then you'll find some sort of liberation.
I've been in the anger stage.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Whereas you were in the grieving stage, Totally. You still kind of go back and forth, but now the anger.
Yeah, it's different though. It's a bit lighter.
And however much time the grief doesn't have a time period. Right. You'll get to the forgiveness and then liberation.
Yeah.
And that's when you can like see each other and be like, hey, how's it going? Oh, yeah. Whatever. He's the dater. That's cool.
Right. Yeah. Takes time. But that's a Ram Dass thing where he talks about like, grief, just take as much time as you need with it. He says he's had people come up to him and be like, I've been grieved. My husband died and I've been grieving for 2 years. It's like, when does the grief stop? And then he just goes, 2 years? Like, keep going. That's nothing.
Right.
Keep feeling it. It's okay. You're allowed to grieve. It's take as much time as you need,
There's this interesting study where they say on average they did this, big study of people who got divorced. Yeah. On average, it took half the time of the marriage to get over it, where people started like saying that they were like felt better. So like, and they did, 30-year study with all kinds of couples, and sure enough, like if they're married 20 years, it took like on average 10 years for the person to get over it. If you are like in a 6 month relationship, on an average, it takes about 3 months to get over it, a year. Right. So pretty crazy to think about it that way too. Is just it's sort of like, it's going to take time, for sure. Right. And then if you're like, that's what's crazy of being these like 60-year-long marriages, you'll never get over it. You won't live long enough.
Yeah. I don't know if I like that. That feels too formulaic, because there's a lot of factors.
Sure.
Because even one, like I've heard about bereavement and loss of a spouse later in life, is that when the relationship was good, the grieving process is actually much shorter than when the relationship was bad. Because when the relationship was bad, there's all of this lack of closure. Why couldn't it have been this way? You're not just grieving the loss of the person in your life. You're grieving years of disappointment and resentment and upset.
And then there's like, Kate Chopin's The Freaking Story of an Hour, I think it is, or whatever, where a friend in the town comes over and says, oh, geez, Charlie died, your husband, and the whole family's there. And they're like, oh my God, Mom, you're going to be so sad. And she like goes upstairs, sits in her rocking chair, closes the door and sees the sunset or sees the sunrise.
Yeah.
And it's like happy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And fucking, I think that can happen too, especially with like a traumatizing relationship. Right. There is no grieving. Actually, it's like,
just relief.
The grieving is, I can't believe I was in that situation for so long, It's
relief.
So, yeah.
Man, it's so wild.
But either way, glad we came back. We want to get to aliens. So
the more
J2J Cycle of Grief. You got to grieve. You got to get mad.
Yeah.
You got to forgive and you got to forget and move on.
And I just want to say the stages, just, to clarify the stages. What was it? Sadness, anger, forgiveness, liberation. General kind of.
Right.
Yeah. And it's not linear. You can move through it different.
Is there an acronym there we can sort of play around with?
Sadness, anger, forgiveness, Saffle.
or gaffle, grief. Yeah. That's the cycle of grief right there. So if you want to, feel better, just allow yourself to go through the motions and don't inhibit yourself by saying, oh, I'm not sad.
You gotta feel it.
Yeah. Freaking, just feel it and just freaking go through the motions.
Oh, some of my most beautiful.
Be sad, be angry.
Last comment on it that I have, some of my most beautiful moments with this grief process or where it's offered me some kind of lesson or wisdom is when I just feel it.
Right.
I've been obsessed with this song called Torn by Natalie Imbruglia. It's like from the 90s. Okay. It's hilarious, dude. I don't know why I'm so into this song. Well, I do because it's a breakup song. But it's just some chick in the 90s wrote it and it's so good. Right. Anyway, the reason it's so good is because she the lyrics are like I've lost all my faith, lying naked on the floor. This is how I feel. It's just so honest. It's just so real. On the floor. Illusion never changed into something real. It's just so good. But all those lines, like lying naked, like that's what it is. You're just like, I don't know what to do. There's nothing I can do. I'm just lying here exposed.
Right.
To the feelings. I've lost all my faith. It's not like, oh, it will get better. It's just like, I'm just here.
But one of the lyrics isn't, I'm going to be here for the rest of my life.
No, exactly.
It happens. You go through it.
Yeah.
Take your shirt off, lie on the ground like I told you, cry it out in your kitchen floor.
Dude, exactly. Yeah.
On behalf of the Jareds, thank you for listening. Follow, comment, and tell your friends. The Jareds will be back next time. And always remember, what we have once enjoyed, we can never lose. Live long and prosper.